We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. If you didn't know already that it was an election year, all you had to do this week was look up to the sky. Air Force One touched down here in Wisconsin again this week, with President Biden touring a Boys and Girls Club in Milwaukee. Now, the trip came with an announcement. The federal government is investing more than $3 billion to help repair communities torn apart by road construction. Here's the president from his speech Wednesday.
In the middle of the 20th century, tens of thousands of black Americans migrated from the South to Milwaukee and other cities in the North to get good-paying manufacturing jobs. But by the 60s, the so-called urban renewal swept this country. Sadly, too many communities across America face the loss of wealth, prosperity, and the possibilities that still reverberate today.
That investment includes money for an overpass connecting Perry Street on the city's south side. It's currently split up by the Beltline near Park Street. And here with more on this infrastructure project is Tom Perez, a White House advisor and former labor secretary. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to start with this idea. You think of major federal infrastructure investments. One that comes to mind would be the interstate system. Now, that came after World War II. We're seeing, though, the federal government make a lot of infrastructure investments now. So what's the impetus for this in 2024?
Well, the impetus of this investment is both equity and opportunity. Will, in the 1950s and 60s, there were all sorts of highway infrastructure projects across the country. And what we saw in city after city after city was black and brown communities were primarily the victims. So in Milwaukee, for instance, the construction of I-94 and I-43 resulted in the demolition of 17,000 houses, predominantly black-owned homes, and 1,000 businesses. In my hometown of Buffalo, New York, when they built the highway to get downtown, went right through East Buffalo, the black part of Buffalo. So many examples across the country. And what we're doing today with these infrastructure projects, reconnecting communities, is making sure that communities like Milwaukee, the 6th Street project, we're going to end up putting wider sidewalks so kids can walk safely to school, bike lanes because there's such demand, dedicated bus lanes for faster transit, plant trees. In Madison, there's $1 million in today's award for the Perry Street overpass, which is a similar situation as occurred in Milwaukee. Obviously, the scope was smaller, but the impact was the same. And so this is about transforming communities, making sure they're more livable. And by the way, these investments and the jobs that are going to result for this are going to be jobs for Wisconsinites. And one of the reasons we have such low unemployment is that the president, unlike his predecessor, didn't just talk about infrastructure, he delivered. And Wisconsin has been a huge beneficiary of all these projects. And today's is extra special for the president because he cares deeply about equity. And there were so many communities left behind in the 60s. We're not going to have that happen in this historic round of infrastructure.
So we're seeing this investment in larger cities, certainly like Milwaukee, but also here in Madison. So why focus on comparatively smaller cities like us here in Madison?
Well, these issues weren't limited to larger cities like Milwaukee. And when we were scouring the country to better understand how these decisions of yesteryear had disproportionate impact on black and brown communities, we discovered issues like Madison and the Perry Street overpass, and your viewers understand that well, and how that ended up being a source of exclusion, and that's not who we are. And everything. The first day that President Biden took office, he issued an executive order on equity. He understood that if we did our job well, we were going to usher in an unprecedented generational level of investment in infrastructure around the country, in red states and blue. And that's exactly what's happened. And he laid out in that executive order a vision. And that vision was, we are not going to make the same mistakes that were made 60 years ago. And in fact, we are going to redress those mistakes by ensuring that we are building vibrant communities. And that is what reconnecting is all about. It's reconnecting opportunity.
Secretary Perez, thanks so much for joining us.